Your son did not have an accident. Those 6 words were written in pencil on the middle page of a small, worn notebook. The handwriting was uneven and careful, the way a child writes when he knows what he is writing down is important. The notebook belonged to Noah, an 8-year-old boy who worked the estate grounds every morning with his father and said almost nothing to anyone. Marcus Cole read those 6 words and did not move. He had been sitting at the long dining table for over an hour, staring at the empty chair across from him. The chair where his son Daniel used to sit with his sleeves rolled up and his coffee going cold while he talked too fast about things Marcus could barely follow. Daniel had been 24 years old. The police report said the brakes had failed. The investigation lasted 9 days and found nothing suspicious. 3 months had passed and the world had moved on and Marcus had not moved at all. He read the words again. Then he looked up at the boy standing across the table. Noah was small and quiet with dark, serious eyes that did not look away. He wore a dark jacket slightly too big for him and had a pencil tucked behind his ear. He was not fidgeting. He was not afraid. He simply stood there and waited the way someone waits when they have already decided that the truth is more important than the consequences of telling it. Marcus pushed the notebook back toward the boy slowly. He was not ready. He did not want to be ready. For 3 months he had built his entire existence around one fact, that his son had died in an accident, and that fact, as terrible as it was at least a fact he could survive. What the notebook was offering him was something else entirely. Noah pushed the notebook back. He opened it to the next page and pointed to a list written in the same careful pencil. Dates, times, a description of a dark car parked near the estate garage on 3 separate evenings in the week before Daniel's death, a license plate number written and circled with a firm hand. And at the bottom of the page, a single name that Noah had seen on the car registration document he found near the drain beside the garage wall. The name did not belong to a stranger. Marcus looked at that name for a long time without speaking. The dining room was completely silent. Outside through the tall windows, the morning light lay across the garden, exactly as it always did, peaceful and indifferent and unchanged. He had sat at this table every morning for 3 months, believing his son was gone because of a broken brake line on a rainy road. He sat there now and understood, slowly and without mercy, that someone had made sure of that. Marcus had known Raymond his entire life. He had known him the way you know someone who was there before. You understood what knowing someone meant. Raymond was 12 years older. He had taught Marcus to drive. He had stood beside him at their father's funeral with one hand on his shoulder and said nothing because nothing needed to be said. When Marcus built his first company, Raymond had signed the guarantee without reading the terms. When the company failed, Raymond had not mentioned it once. When it succeeded the second time, Raymond had smiled the way only an older brother smiles, without jealousy, without condition, as if the success belonged to both of them simply because they shared a name. That was the man whose name was written at the bottom of Noah's notebook page. Marcus stood from the table and walked to the window. He stood there for a long time, looking at nothing. Behind him, Noah remained exactly where he was, small and still. The notebook closed now and held against his chest. The flashback came the way flashbacks always come, without permission. Daniel, at 19, sitting across from Raymond at this same table, listening carefully while Raymond explained how the board worked, who to trust, who to watch. Daniel laughing at something Raymond said, and Raymond laughing too, genuinely, the way a man laughs when he is proud of someone. Daniel had called Raymond his second father. He had said it more than once. He had said it the week before he died. Marcus pressed one hand flat against the cold glass of the window. He had spent 3 months asking himself what he could have done differently, what road he should have told Daniel to take, whether he should have called that evening the way he almost did but did not, because it was late, and he did not want to seem like he was checking. He had carried those questions every single morning for 3 months, and they had nearly finished him. He had never once asked who. He turned from the window and looked at Noah. The boy had not moved. His dark eyes were steady and patient. On the estate grounds beyond the glass, Marcus could see Joseph, Noah's father, moving slowly between the hedges with his tools, completely unaware that his 8-year-old son was standing inside the main house, holding the kind of information that ends dynasties. Marcus walked back to the table. He sat down. He pulled the notebook toward him again and looked at the license plate number one more time, committing it to memory the way a man commits something to memory when he knows he cannot trust paper to keep it safe. Then he looked at the name again. Raymond Cole. His brother had attended the funeral in the front row. He had wept. He had held Marcus by the arm during the burial and said that Daniel was the best of both of them and that the loss was unbearable. And then that same evening, he had gone home and slept. Marcus closed the notebook. He had one question left, and only one person who could answer it without warning Raymond that the question had been asked. But what Marcus did not know yet was that Raymond had already noticed the notebook was missing. Raymond arrived at the estate that evening without being called. That was the first sign. Raymond never came without calling first. He had a habit of announcing himself, of arriving prepared, of making sure the conditions were right before he walked into a room. Marcus had always taken it as consideration. He understood now it was control. Marcus was sitting in his study when he heard the front door. He did not move. He had spent the afternoon on the phone with Carter, a private investigator who asked no questions and left no traces. Carter had confirmed within 3 hours what Noah had written in pencil in a child's notebook. The dark car parked outside the estate in the days before Daniel's death was registered to a holding company. The holding company had one director. The director had one brother. Raymond walked into the study and stopped when he saw Marcus's face. There is a moment between two people who have known each other a long time when one of them understands that the other one knows. It does not require words. It does not require evidence placed on a table or accusations spoken aloud. It lives entirely in the eyes, and it lasts less than a second, and it cannot be taken back once it has passed. That moment passed between them now. Raymond straightened. He adjusted his cufflinks, the left one first, then the right. The same small movement he had made his entire life whenever he needed a second to think. Marcus had seen him do it 1,000 times and never understood what it meant until this moment. The company had been the reason. Carter had found that too. A restructuring clause buried in the partnership agreement that Daniel had discovered 3 weeks before his death. A clause that would have transferred controlling shares to Daniel upon his 25th birthday, bypassing Raymond entirely. Daniel had flagged it to his own lawyer, but had not yet told Marcus. He had wanted to be certain before he brought it to his father. He never got the chance. Marcus stood from his chair and placed Noah's notebook on the desk between them. He did not open it. He did not need to. Raymond looked at it the way a man looks at the thing he should have found and destroyed, but did not because he had not considered that an 8-year-old boy with a pencil and a serious face might be paying attention near the garage wall on a cold evening in November. 2 men in suits entered the study from the hallway behind Raymond. Carter had made a second call that afternoon, the kind Marcus had asked him to make quietly and without announcement. Raymond did not struggle. He stood completely still for a moment, looking not at the men behind him, but at Marcus, his older brother, the person he had stood beside at every funeral, every failure, every beginning. He looked at Marcus the way a man looks when he has run out of versions of himself to offer. Marcus looked back. He did not speak. There was nothing left to say that the room had not already said. They took Raymond out through the front door, and the house went quiet in a way it had not been quiet in 3 months. Marcus stood at the study window and watched the car disappear down the long driveway and out through the estate gates. Behind him, he heard small footsteps. Noah stood in the doorway holding his notebook. He looked at Marcus for a long moment with those dark, serious eyes that had seen what no one else had bothered to look for. Marcus nodded once. The boy nodded back. And Marcus understood then that justice does not always arrive in a courtroom or a verdict or a moment the world agrees to witness. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in pencil, in the hands of a child who simply refused to look away.